Not performing, so just be there.
Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, maybe I'll come by. Thanks, Jesse.
All right.
Good evening. I'm Brett Baer. The Trump administration's war on fraud moves to Massachusetts and a major scam involving food benefits, Social Security programs, and illegal immigrants. A-listers galore at the opening of the Obama Presidential Library, but many people who live near it are not celebrating. And we preview the U.S. national team's second World Cup match and whether its star player will be on the field. But first, breaking tonight, the Trump administration pushing back on criticism of its peace deal with Iran and lifting its blockade of Iranian ports. Vice President J.D. Vance saying the U.S. received everything it wanted, but that is not stopping fierce criticism of the agreement from both parties. Correspondent Lucas Tomlinson starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn of the White House. Good evening, Lucas.
Good evening, Brett. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke to reporters at the White House today to defend the agreement and to kickstart a new 60-day clock on a ceasefire and negotiating period over Iran's nuclear weapons program.
We have all the cards.
Vice President J.D. Vance insists the United States is getting everything it wanted out of the Iran deal.
Their nuclear program has been completely destroyed.
Vance says he's confident the Trump administration can lift sanctions on Iran without going to Congress for approval. As this message to critics who insist Iran will receive billions in exchange for Trump's signature.
The United States isn't giving up a cent of money to Iran.
A point President Trump is echoing on Truth Social. There is no $300 billion payment to Iran by the U.S. That's fake news. All there is for the U.S. is success, lower oil prices, and victory. Check out the stock market. Democrat propaganda at play. It's not just Democrats criticizing the memorandum. Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Roger Wicker says the $300 billion fund, quote, would make Iran's payoff under President Obama's 2015 deal look like a pittance by comparison. A new Ronald Reagan Institute poll shows 52% of Democrats favor a negotiated settlement. 50% of Republicans favor regime change. Iran's new supreme leader, Mustafa Khamenei, issued a rare public statement after signing the agreement, read by a news anchor. It was the American president who, out of desperation, used all kinds of leverage to bring this about.
They certainly recognize that the United States has great leverage. Will that ultimately lead to a change in behavior? I don't know.
Vance also has a blunt message to critics of the deal in Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet, warning they should not be attacking the only powerful ally they have left.
Anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in.
After President Trump said in France he would blame the vice president if the deal goes south, today Vance said the president was only joking. For now, Vance says he could be going to Switzerland this weekend to kickstart a new round of talks with the Iranians over their nuclear program. Brett?
Lucas Thompson live on the North Lawn. Lucas, thanks. The average price for a gallon of gas has fallen to its lowest level since the end of March and is down more than $0.50 from a month ago. Fox Business correspondent Lauren Simonetti joins us tonight with a look at how the Iran deal may be affecting energy prices now. Good evening, Lauren.
Good evening, Brett. So Gas Buddy says it is possible gas prices hit $2.99 for Christmas if the Strait of Hormuz stays open and there are no major disruptions. Today, as you noted, gas averaging $3.99 nationally, the first time it's under $4 since March 30th, giving drivers some relief this summer.
Oil prices are down nearly at their level from the pre-war conflict. Gas prices dropped below $4 a gallon today. And importantly, they're going to keep falling further given how low oil prices are.
Oil prices at $76 now as activity in the Strait of Hormuz picks up. CENTCOM announcing today U.S. forces lifted the blockade on all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports, helping give the tanker owners some confidence they can transit the strait more easily. Marine traffic data shows 8 vessels crossed today, including 3 Saudi tankers, flush with 6 million barrels of oil. They turned their signals on for the first time in more than 2 months, as an avalanche of oil might be coming online. The data tracker Kepler says 165 million barrels could start to hit the market in as little as 10 days. 93 million of those are on ships that have been stuck in the Persian Gulf. A maritime security organization has downgraded its threat level in the region to substantial from severe. And while we are just starting to see more movement in the Middle East Gulf, there is also movement to the U.S. Gulf. MSI Horizon says 75 empty ships are headed here to fill up with our cargo. Brett?
All right, Lauren, thank you. Markets were up after tech stocks fueled a comeback from yesterday's sell-off. The Dow gained 72. The S&P 500 finished ahead 80. The Nasdaq jumped 496 today. For the week, the Dow gained 0.7 of a percentage point. The S&P 500 was up 1. The Nasdaq surged 2.5. Markets are closed tomorrow for Juneteenth. Tonight we have new information about the rise of progressive and Democratic Socialist candidates in this election cycle. We've been talking about it over recent days. D.C. mayoral candidate Janice Lewis-George has won her primary in the nation's capital. This evening, Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani are rallying for 3 far-left congressional candidates. National correspondent Brian Yennis shows us tonight from Brooklyn.
It's a fight for the soul of the Democratic Party as more Democratic Socialists successfully primary mainstream Democrats nationwide. Democratic Socialist Janice Lewis-George becoming the Democratic nominee for mayor in Washington, D.C. today, while in New York City tonight, Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Senator Bernie Sanders campaign against Democratic Party veterans like 5-term Congressman Adriano Espaillat. Instead, they are endorsing far-left candidates in 3 New York primary House races. Former Democratic Socialist of America member Brad Lander and Democratic Socialist Claire Valdez and Daria Lisa Chevalier. Chevalier apologized for her now deleted tweets that said in part F the police and F former VP Kamala Harris. But she's unapologetic about saying all deportations are wrong, even for convicted criminals.
Is that something you still believe?
That phrase, yes. I still believe that all deportations are wrong.
That would seem to also include people who were convicted of breaking U.S. criminal law. Is the deportation of those people wrong?
Yes.
All 3 Sanders and Mamdani endorsed candidates are for abolishing ICE and are anti-Israel. Both issues are dividing Democrats. While pro-Israel establishment Democratic Party leader Nancy Pelosi campaigns in New York for Congressman Dan Goldman, Mamdani's candidates, Chevalier and Valdez, campaign alongside far-left streamer Hassan Piker, who once said America deserved 9/11. The marquee outside the theater tonight behind me reads, "Our Team, Our Year," Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Senator Bernie Sanders. The question some Democrats are asking themselves tonight is what team that really is, the party's or their own. Brett?
Brian Yennis, live in Brooklyn. Brian, thanks. The Justice Department is cracking down tonight on the alleged misuse of taxpayer dollars in Massachusetts. More than a dozen people are charged with scamming the state's food stamp and Social Security programs, many of whom are not U.S. citizens. Fox Business News correspondent Connor Hansen has details tonight.
It appears that you can come to Massachusetts and steal as many benefits as you want, without fear and without any accountability.
The White House Anti-Fraud Task Force descended on Boston as members today announcing 15 new arrests with suspects allegedly scamming SNAP benefits, disability, and Social Security programs. Prosecutors say 11 of those suspects are illegal immigrants accused of stealing the identities of U.S. citizens and blocking them out of crucial programs.
American citizens were boxed out of these programs because illegal aliens took their names to then take their money, or more accurately, your money, the American taxpayers' money.
The task force says some of these cases were uncovered after Americans went to apply for benefits and were denied, not only because someone had already used their identity for the programs, but also used their identities to commit more crimes. The Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office says it has charged 65 people with alleged fraud offenses so far this year, adding up to more than $56 million.
Not that long ago, the very same agents that were working on these cases would present them to U.S. attorneys and be told, sorry, you're not meeting the threshold. Sorry, we're not prosecuting that.
The Massachusetts Department of Transitional Assistance told us it supports aggressive prosecution of anyone who steals benefits from families who depend on them. DOJ fraud czar Colin McDonald says the task force is going to announce more major fraud cases next week. Brett?
Connor, thank you. Breaking in just the past few minutes, lawyers for the man accused of gunning down a healthcare insurance executive in Manhattan now say they will not pursue a so-called psychiatric defense. Yesterday, Luigi Mangioni's defense team said it would use such a tactic. Those lawyers faced a deadline today to prove prosecutors with information to support their claim. Bring that forward. That Mangioni was undergoing extreme emotional disturbance at the time of the killing in December of 2024. Again, they've reversed that decision. Up next, the Obama Presidential Center opens in Chicago. Why some people in the neighborhood are not too happy about it. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. WDRB in Louisville as strong storms sweep across the area overnight, bringing damaging winds, heavy rain, and reports of tornadoes in several communities. At least 2 radar-confirmed tornadoes hit parts of southern Indiana. One of the hardest hit areas was Jackson County, Indiana, where reports of tornado damage emerged after storms moved through overnight. Fox 4 in Kansas City as police search for a man they say is connected to a shooting spree that left 1 person dead, several others injured Tuesday evening. Police believe the suspect is responsible for 5 separate shootings reported between 6 p.m. and 6:30 Tuesday across Kansas City. And this is a live look at New York. One of the big stories there tonight from Fox 5, our affiliate. Police say 2 million people celebrated the Knicks today during a parade after their NBA championship run. Multiple people were arrested. It's the 3rd title for the franchise. The Knicks defeated the San Antonio Spurs in 5 games in the finals. Congratulations, that was quite a parade. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back. Also accused in the plot, Tyson Proper from Ohio, Brian Roa and Michael Thomas from California, and Abraham Alvarez from Nebraska. Federal officials say Alvarez was the ringleader. They also say he entered the U.S. on a B-2 visitor visa and failed to depart before it expired in December 2001. He was granted DACA status in 2014 and has been living here as a DACA recipient since. One law enforcement source briefed says officials believe they have the suspects that posed the biggest threat already behind bars. Officials also say none of those suspects got to D.C. The U.S. Supreme Court is siding with a Texas marijuana user who wants to legally own a gun. Justices ruled unanimously in favor of the man who argued that a law barring guns from anyone who uses drugs illegally violates the Second Amendment. The Trump administration had defended the 1968 law in question, despite arguing against other gun restrictions. The Obama Presidential Center is opening in Chicago, but despite a star-studded celebration today, local activists insist the facility has led to rising rent prices and increasing costs for residents in surrounding neighborhoods. They also have a problem with it overall. Correspondent Garrett Tenney takes a look tonight from Chicago.
Please, I found my purpose here, and I fortified my faith here, and I found my community here. So, for me, this center could not be anyplace else.
A star-studded crowd celebrating the dedication of the Obama Presidential Center today. After years of delays and a ballooning budget, the $850 million project is now poised to open to the public.
The Obama Presidential Center was created as a beacon of hope, and especially during these anxious and divisive times.
Instead of celebrating, though, some of the folks who helped build the center are protesting.
Justice for the Obama builders.
At least 10 construction firms involved in the project claim they're still owed $100 million for the work they did. Not from the Obama Foundation, but from Lakeside Alliance, the construction management group hired to oversee the development.
Some of our contractors are already in bankruptcy. That's what they're saying, that if it wasn't the fact that they worked on this Obama project, they would not be under this type of problem, filing bankruptcy for protection.
Lakeside Alliance says it's committed to working with subcontractors to address any outstanding issues.
But some folks who live in this area are also concerned the center could lead to gentrification and higher rents.
Now that the Obama Center is coming, all of these new buyers want to come in and they want to take over the land that has already been here and kick out the people that have been here.
Every living former president and first lady attended today's ceremony, with the notable exception of President Trump, who has compared the Obama Presidential Center to trash and was not invited. Brett?
Garrett Tenney, live in Chicago. Garrett, thanks. For many Americans, California used to be a golden destination. Beaches, mountains, a strong economy, near perfect weather. But now Californians are bailing, particularly those in the working class. Senior national correspondent William Lajeunesse tells us why tonight.
California is shrinking. Matt Engel's family is one reason why.
All of a sudden, crime started rising. It was visible. Homeless folks were all of a sudden living on our street where they weren't before. And you get to a point and you're just saying, what am I doing here?
In 2021, Engels had enough, trading his LA house for another outside Austin.
We have 50,000 Californians a year on average moving to Texas.
Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, Tennessee lead the exodus. Both gubernatorial candidates recognize a need to change.
California is going through a crisis. We need real change in California.
According to the census, California lost 54,000 residents the last year, 200,000 the last 5 years, 400,000 the last 10. But what concerns demographers, it's not how many, but who is leaving.
When we look at who's leaving California, it tends to be lower and middle income people.
Of the 15 largest cities with the steepest population declines, 11 are in California. Not along the coast, but working class and immigrant-anchored suburbs. Industrial hubs like Union City, a haven of Asian and Latino immigrants in the Bay Area. And aspirational cities like Pleasanton and Cerritos in LA. But today, families there without college degrees are priced out. From taxes and gas prices to utilities and housing, residents say California is simply unaffordable.
Median housing prices of over $1 million in the state's large metropolitan areas mean that a lot of people are not able to live in California and buy a house.
So what do the numbers mean? Well, California lost 1 congressional seat after the 2020 census and is expected to lose 4 more in 2030, most of any state. Brett?
William, thank you. Up next, serious allegations against a leading transgender health group. Plus, Congress is considering legislation that could change the future of college sports.
Hi, folks.
Tonight, a leading transgender health nonprofit organization is being accused of using misleading claims to help market gender transition treatments for children. The group says the Federal Trade Commission is acting out of what it calls pure retaliation. With the story, here's correspondent Alexandria Hoff.
The Federal Trade Commission, which typically focuses on commercial fraud, is accusing the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, of false advertising. Joined by the Attorneys General of Texas, Alaska, Nebraska, and Iowa, the FTC claims in the new consumer protection lawsuit that WPATH has profited off of claiming that transgender treatments for children are medically necessary, despite the treatments not being backed by reliable data.
We're talking about puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries, and these procedures.
How
when we look at
ridiculous.
the systematic reviews, there's no evidence of any benefit.
That's Kurt Massini, Chief Medical Officer of Do No Harm, a national advocacy group that opposes gender transition services for minors. In 2024, a landmark independent evaluation of youth gender medicine in the UK, known as the CAS Review, concluded that evidence supporting medical transitions for minors to be of very low certainty. WPATH states that its guidelines are informed by established scientific standards. Pushing back against the lawsuit, writing in part, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is not a medical provider and has no place interfering with the process of individualized medical decision-making. Last month, a federal judge temporarily blocked an FTC investigation into WPATH, making it so the nonprofit did not have to hand over internal communications. The judge found the commission's demand for documents to be overly broad. WPATH called the original investigation a politically motivated attack. This lawsuit filed in the Northern District of Texas could prove an effective workaround, as the commission will no longer have to appeal for the right to investigate, but can jump right into allegations of deception. Brett.
Alex, thanks. Well, this is a potentially momentous day for the future of college sports in this country. The Senate is looking at legislation affecting name, image, and likeness programs, NIL, athlete compensation, and transfers. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram reports from Capitol Hill.
A congressional Hail Mary to potentially save intercollegiate athletics.
College sports is in crisis.
There's a sense of urgency in that room. You could feel it. Right? You've got to do something rapidly.
A Senate panel approving a bipartisan game plan to fundamentally change college sports.
We have put something on the table that's going to bring more certainty and predictability to the system.
The bill establishes a nationwide NIL payout framework. Inaction means moneyed major programs outbid smaller schools, perhaps even for a future NFL MVP.
I'm worried that we'll never see a Josh Allen again at the University of Wyoming.
The bill also restricts athletes to one transfer over 5 years without penalty.
Well, now we have this unbelievable number of players that get in a portal every year, and we have nothing to control agents.
A former Stanford tight end and current senator opposes the bill.
I've seen decade after decade how the NCAA has screwed athletes. And so we need to make sure there's firm athletic protections and not trust the NCAA to do it.
And a former Auburn football coach, now senator, christened the bill Obamacare for Sports.
We cannot run college sports. Congress should not decide how much money student athletes can earn.
There's concern the bill could undercut broadcasters and would complicate viewing.
The fans get hurt because all the content is behind a paywall.
The Big Ten and SEC never endorsed the bill. There's criticism that private equity aims to pool broadcast rights. That could divert the focus from safeguarding those who play. Brett?
It's a big deal. Chad Pergram live on Capitol Hill. Chad, thanks. Well, the U.S. men's national team preparing for its second World Cup match. The squad will host Australia tomorrow afternoon in Seattle. The U.S. won its opener 4-1 over Paraguay. But there are major questions about whether its star player will be able to participate in tomorrow's critical game. Friday's winner is guaranteed to advance to the tournament's knockout round. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt with a good assignment in Seattle right now. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, Brett. Within the next 15 minutes or so, we should get a clearer idea as to whether star player Christian Pulisic will play any part in tomorrow's critical showdown with Australia. Head coach Mauricio Pochettino is due to hold a press conference here at Seattle Stadium, and I'm told he will, quote, address the Pulisic situation. Now, Pulisic was not on the training field with the team when we were with them earlier today. He was apparently working in the gym. That's the fourth straight day he's undergone modified training as he recovers from injury. Now, his absence would certainly be a major blow considering just how well he played in the opening game victory over Paraguay. And it would require players like midfielder Weston McKennie to fill that attacking void in a game that could clinch the US at least second place in their group and therefore a place in the knockout phase.
If you win tomorrow, you're guaranteed to make it to the knockout rounds. Does that mean anything, or is it not job done unless you qualify first?
Yeah, I think obviously we go into all the games wanting to win the games, and even if we do win tomorrow, whatever the result is, we still have a third game to play, and it won't be taken them lightly at all. So, yeah, I think it's more of a job not done.
On balance, the US, I would say, has more individual talent than Australia, but Australia has a star forward, Nestori Irankunda, whose speed could certainly trouble a US defense that has been a little slow at times. It's all shaping up to be a great game, Brett. It's on Fox, of course, and I think there are many Australian and US fans who will be sleepless in Seattle tonight. Brett?
Definitely. Jonathan Hunt live in Seattle. Jonathan, thanks. Up next, the panel on gas prices falling, skepticism on the Iran peace deal, however, growing. First, beyond our borders tonight. Ukraine hits a major Moscow oil refinery for the second time in a week. One of the biggest drone attacks since the Russian invasion also disrupted commercial flights at Moscow's airports. Tonight, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the future of Europe is being decided with Ukraine's defense. A former British border official and a retired Hong Kong police officer are given prison sentences for spying on dissidents and critics of Beijing in Britain. Prosecutors say the men posed as police or intelligence officers to conduct surveillance and gather information about Hong Kong dissidents and pro-democracy supporters. And this is a live look at London. One of the big stories there tonight. Qantas Airways plans to launch the world's longest direct flight next year. It will be a 19 to 22-hour non-stop service between London and Sydney. The Sydney-based airline has unveiled the first of its specially modified Airbus jets that will regularly make that nearly 11,000-mile journey. Just some of the stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back. Let's fly, let's fly.
Thank you, no thank you.
People say the Iranians will never change their behavior. Well, maybe that's true, but isn't it worth trying?
Unfortunately, the president is receiving some really bad advice on this deal. I don't want to see us send a penny to the Ayatollah.
Iran took Trump to the cleaners with this so-called understanding.
I'm glad we're on the course, on the path to diplomacy, and we'll know in the coming weeks what kind of deal we will get.
Well, a lot of people, both sides of the aisle, lawmakers, all kinds of pundits weighing in on the Iran peace deal and what comes next. The Iranian parliamentary speaker went to X just minutes ago, saying the task assigned to us by the supreme leaders to pursue the realization of the conditions and clauses of the agreement. In the event of bad faith, breach of contract, and excessive demands by the opposing side, we have no hesitation in delivering a crushing response to the enemy. That's from the Iranian parliamentary speaker. Let's bring in our panel. Kimberly Strassel, Fox News contributor, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, and Megan Messerly, White House reporter for Politico. Kimberly, you know, the incoming on the criticism has been pretty stiff, and the vice president was out today kind of defending that on all fronts.
They would have to get a lot of money in order to rebuild their nuclear program. You're talking about billions and billions of nuclear infrastructure that the United States destroyed. In order for them to rebuild that program, they would have to get a lot of money. And we have them in an economic chokehold right now that we're not going to release until they fundamentally change their behavior. What would that look like? That would mean a real inspections regime.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, though, is that under the terms of this deal, we will not be putting them in an economic chokehold anymore. And that's really what the criticism over this memorandum is. Under this deal, they get immediate ending of the embargo on their products, which means they're going to be able to start shipping oil out and reset their oil fields, which were on the verge of having to shut because they had no more storage space. They get immediate relief from sanctions. And by the way, some of the fine print of this deal is that we commit to not imposing any more on them until the end of 60 days, to the termination of some sort of understanding, and they get immediate access to frozen funds. Now, it would be one thing if what the administration was saying is, well, you know, they're allowing us to now open the Strait of Hormuz and we're going to talk and get to the end of a nuclear deal and nothing else. But instead, we are relinquishing, bailing out an Iran that's at its weakest in 47 years with all of these permissions and money and exceptions, which is going to allow it to put it back on a stronger footing and have even less reason to go ahead and make further concessions.
Yeah, one, the naval blockade officially coming to an end today. CENTCOM putting out a statement saying today U.S. forces lifted the blockade on all maritime traffic emerging and exiting Iranian ports and coastal areas. Our great naval ships will remain in the general area to make sure that all aspects of the agreement are adhered to, obeyed, and in full force and effect. You know, you saw the president the other day in the G7 joking that if this deal goes wrong, it's going to be Vice President Vance who will be fronting it, and he kind of laughed at that, and the Vice President said it was a joke. But you know, the supreme leader in Iran came out and said the only reason he signed off on it was because the Iranian president said he would take the blame if it went south. Take a listen.
In principle, I had a different view, but because of the commitment that the respected president, as head of the Supreme National Security Council, gave me on behalf of himself and the other members to safeguard the rights of the Iranian nation and the resistant front, and because he explicitly accepted responsibility for it, I issued permission for it.
Sounds similar. Juan?
It does, doesn't it? So I guess everybody is arguing over this deal. You know, I take a different position, but I just think, look, we've got to stop arguing over the deal. It's a deal, and we got to figure out how to make the best of the deal. And that includes Democrats, that includes Israel, a lot of people who have strong reservations about the terms of the deal. But the president has approved, our president, United States president, has approved the deal. He doesn't want to go back to war. I think he feels politically burned. It's never been popular with the public. I think there are questions about, underestimating the Iranian resolve here. And so we're in a position as the United States to look for how we can possibly do our best to prevent Iran in the future from getting any nuclear weaponry and protect the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, nonsense. That's about the stupidest thing I ever heard anybody say.
And, we often look back to experts in the past that have looked at the same issues. You go back to 2006.
A deal is a deal.
About,
you enforce
the
it.
next steps with Iran. He said this: a modern, strong, peaceful Iran could become a pillar of stability and progress in the region. This cannot happen unless Iran's leaders decide whether they are representing a cause or a nation, whether their basic motivation is crusading or international cooperation. We're basically at the same point right now, determining whether the 60 days they're going to make that choice or the other one.
I think that's exactly what we heard from Vice President J.D. Vance today. I was in the White House briefing room where he was talking to reporters about his and the president's vision for what the next 60 days look like. And he really put the ball in Iran's court, saying, the way we've structured this agreement, they move, we move. Of course, there are certain concessions, and folks have raised concerns about them. The fact that Iran gets certain things right off the bat under the MOU, but the argument that the vice president was making is this is really supposed to be an agreement that really gets us on a better path to nuclear talks, to further negotiations. But it is a gamble here, and that's one of the big things that I've spent the last couple days talking to folks about is, there's no guarantee that this all goes the way the U.S. wants it to. And I think that's what we heard from the vice president today. And I think it's the thing underpinning this whole deal is we don't actually know if this is going to result in Iran really permanently not having nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and the political implications ahead of November, obviously significant. Panel, stand by if you would. Up next, the rise of Democratic Socialist candidates around the country, and then the newest Medal of Honor recipients.
This weekend, buy a 5-gallon bucket and get 20% off almost anything that fits inside it.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
As mayor, I will work with anyone who makes DC safer, but I will also stand up to Trump.
In Washington, crime is way down. People feel much safer. The president has shown a willingness to work with anybody who shares those desires, even in blue cities.
Maybe we'll take back Washington, run it on the federal basis. We won't put up with it. We're not going to lose our businesses.
Well, Democratic Socialist candidates are winning in primaries in the D.C. mayor's race. A Democratic Socialist has won that primary. Likely will become the next mayor of Washington, D.C., and it's happening other places. We're back at the panel. Kimberly, there are concerns in the moderate wing of the Democratic Party that this is changing the dynamic around the country.
There should be. When you talk to Republicans and what is otherwise a pretty glum midterm outlook, when they see races like this, is what gives them a little smile on their face. They hope it continues because they came out of 2024, they got thumped because of these progressive priorities that were there. They had a little bit of soul searching, and now they've gone straight back. This is what they're electing. And while it's possible to elect these sort of characters in New York City and Washington, D.C., you now see that fervor spreading other places like in Maine, where they have a candidate that's pretty, it's not a democratic socialist, but about as progressive as you get. And that's making Republicans feel a little bit better about some really high-profile marquee races they have this fall.
Yeah, Democratic advisor Doug Schoen says far-left Democrats keep saying saving Republicans from themselves. Juan, Democrats are set to enter the midterm general election cycle potentially with a slate of nominees whose positions and backgrounds may do more to help rescue the GOP than anything Republicans have done or will be able to do for themselves. Democrats remain polarized and divided with ideological and personal fissures that have taken the form of an intra-party struggle. What do you make of that?
I think Doug's right. From my perspective, I think the key to the midterms obviously is turnout for the Democrats. And there are two approaches to that I can see taking shape right now. One is that you have people like Bernie Sanders, Mondami, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or this new mayor in D.C. And what they're appealing to is Democrats' anger over President Trump, some of his divisive actions and behavior. But then you also have the Rahm Emanuels, you also have the Josh Shapiros, the Ruben Gallegos, and their approach to getting Democrats to turn out in November is a more moderate, unified approach, saying we need to be the party that's sane, rational, pragmatic about solutions to the kitchen table issues, the gas prices and inflation. That's the split Doug is talking about. And right now, though, when you look at New York or D.C., you're looking at real, true blue areas. That's just about Democratic anger more so than any strategy.
Speaking of New York, live look into New York. This event, getting ready to hear from New York Mayor Mondani, and there he is at the mic alongside Senator Bernie Sanders. Let's listen in for a second.
The page on the politics of big money and small ideas. A movement to usher in a new era for our city.
Communist.
A movement to make government every single New Yorker, not just the wealthy and the well-connected.
A little taste there from Mayor Mamdani, and this is ongoing. He's essentially testing his political clout in that New York primary with Democratic Socialist candidates for different congressional seats. You look at the list of priorities for Democratic Socialists, at least on their website, it is quite something. And you scroll through Medicare for all, end the war on drugs, fight mass incarceration, police brutality, college for all, housing for all, 32-hour work week, tax the rich, Green New Deal, free Palestine, end the U.S. war machine. It continues on. And the question is how broad this will be across the country.
That is absolutely the question, Brett. And I think the challenge for Democrats, progressive Democrats, and Democratic Socialists alike is how to transition their agenda into an actual governing philosophy. A lot of the policy proposals they have would be very difficult to accomplish, and we have not seen the kind of widespread support in the U.S. to actually get them done. On the other hand, what I think is really interesting, and I talked to a lot of folks in and around the White House about this, is you see folks like Mamdani really speaking to this sort of anti-establishment sentiment. Folks are unhappy with the status quo. They're unhappy with what they see as quote-unquote establishment Democrats. And so they're voting for these sort of change agents because they're unhappy with the Democratic Party as it is. And so the big question then moving forward is, okay, that's great that there's that Democratic enthusiasm, but how do Democrats figure out how to actually capture that and, to what we were just talking about, translate that into an actual governing philosophy?
I mean, I do think that this is fascinating on both parties. You have the war and dividing the MAGA part of the party, and then on the Democratic side, this split. How that plays out over the next few months is really going to tell the story of the midterms. Panel, thanks so much. Finally tonight, a special report salute.
The nation kept you waiting far too long. So I say to you, congratulations, you made it.
Marine Corps Colonel John W. Ripley honored posthumously along with Army Major Nicholas Dockery and Marine Corps Major James Capers at the White House today. The three were awarded the Medal of Honor by President Trump. The newest recipients, you may recognize that last name. Capers is a familiar face to the Fox family. He previously received a Salute to Service Award at the Fox Nation Patriot Awards.
The world looks on us. They sometimes question our motives, but they'll never question our drive.
I present this to you.
Capers was also the first African American to serve in a Marine reconnaissance.
That's it, babe.
All right.